Parts of Devon and Cornwall will see some quite gusty winds throughout Saturday, and these showers do bring a risk of hail and thunderstorms on Saturday. There will be some dry weather around, though, actually. Once the main rain clears actually in the north, much of Scotland will see relatively dry weather, and there will be some sunshine here and there across central areas. And as I said, it is on the milder side of things, 10 or 11 degrees. Some areas seeing 12 degrees actually through Saturday afternoon. So not too bad, but definitely a pretty unsettled weekend. Cold start though on Sunday morning, and then the next band of rain bringing another spell of heavy downpours throughout Sunday afternoon across the country, particularly actually this time across northern areas moves in. Now that will clear for some respite on Monday, but the next batch of wet and for some of us very windy weather arrives on Tuesday.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the greatest cash prize of a Great British giveaway so far. A simply stunning £85,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like, making 2026 your greatest year to date. That could get you that brand new car, extend and improve your home, take you away on that bucket list holiday, or just give you some peace of mind over the coming months. For a chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Friday Night with me, Matt Goodwin on GB News, the People's Channel, where I speak up for you, the forgotten majority. Coming up on tonight's show.
Is minded to hold the inaugural mayoral elections for Sussex and Brighton, Hampshire and the Solent, Norfolk and Suffolk and Greater Essex in May 2028.
Well, the Labour government have announced that they are going to postpone 4 mayoral elections until 2028, blaming the delay on local authorities needing more time to merge.
Double standards and hypocrisy of the BBC are absolutely astonishing.
And question time drama last night as the BBC gave airtime to small boat migrants during their immigration special. And this comes as Nigel Farage attacked the broadcaster during his press conference yesterday. And a fresh Brexit row has erupted as David Lammy suggests that closer European Union ties could boost the UK's growth. Downing Street say there will be no rejoining the single market. We'll be debating that tonight. And a huge story is breaking this evening. President Trump, who's just won the FIFA Peace Prize, well, he has warned European nations that they face what he calls civilizational erasure. They may be about to lose their civilizations in the next few decades because of mass immigration. We're going to be debating that on tonight's show too. And I'll also be joined tonight by my top panel, political commentator Ellie Hodges and former Labour advisor Stella Santakidou. I think I've got that right finally. As ever, let me know your views, gbnews.com/your say, and of course you can reach us on X at GBNews. Now it's time for the news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much. The top stories this evening. Number 10 has dismissed David Lammy's suggestions that it could be beneficial for the UK to look at rejoining or forming a new customs union with the EU. The Deputy Prime Minister argued leaving the European Union badly damaged the UK economy and rejoining the EU customs union would boost economic growth. His comments echo similar arguments from the Health Secretary Wes Streeting, who said that Labour should undo the economic damage done by Brexit.
This year we had the first UK-EU summit ever, and we had 10 strands to a closer relationship. So we've totally reset relations with the EU. That's good for our economy, good for defence and security, good for the work that we need to do on energy. And we've transformed, really, in 17 months in office, to a country that was looking disinterested in being on the world stage to a country that's now respected again, and where other countries are looking to us for influence, for advice, for partnerships. You're seeing that with the EU, but of course elsewhere across the world. So I'm really pleased that we've been able to move things forward.
Reform UK's Zia Youssef has criticised the BBC after the broadcaster invited multiple asylum seekers to sit in on Question Time's immigration special. The debate episode was filmed in Dover on the front line of Britain's migrant crisis. Speaking to GB News after the show, Mr Youssef said he couldn't believe what he was witnessing.
Were two illegal migrants who come originally by small boat. As you can see, the BBC were very open about that. How on earth it can be deemed appropriate that people who broke into this country illegally should have a seat at the table in a political discussion about immigration, about illegal immigration on a BBC immigration special is so bewildering.
A BBC spokesman told GB News all the parties represented on the panel were told the day before the show that there would be people in the audience who had been through the asylum system. Elsewhere, England play Croatia, Panama and Ghana in next year's World Cup group stage. That game to take place in Toronto or Dallas. The Three Lions lost to Croatia in the semi-final of the 2018 World Cup. And Scotland's first two opponents are to be Brazil, Morocco and Haiti in Group C. The Tartan Army are making it their first World Cup appearance since 1998. Meanwhile, Donald Trump earlier was given FIFA's new Peace Prize at the World Cup draw. World Football's governing body said it would be given to individuals who have taken exceptional and extraordinary actions for peace. Mr Trump has long campaigned for a Nobel Peace Prize for his involvement in resolving global conflicts, including the ceasefire agreed between Israel and Hamas in October. And the Prince and Princess of Wales and their children have joined a congregation of celebrities and sporting stars to celebrate love in all its forms at Christmas. A warning, the following contains some flashing images. The Together at Christmas service is in its 5th year and brings together members of the royal family and 1,600 guests, where the princess and her husband married in 2011. The service recognised individuals from across the UK who may have dedicated or volunteered their time to others or offered a helping hand to those around them. And those are the latest headlines. For now, more in an hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Welcome back to Friday Night with Matt Goodwin. And what a week it has been. I hope you made it through okay. So, Prime Minister Keir Starmer, just what was it about languishing at 14% in the national polls that led you to cancel 4 mayoral elections?
There are various arrangements being put in place to ensure all the elections could take place at the right time, depending on the configurations of the council and other arrangements.
Essex, Hampshire and the Solent, Sussex and Brighton, Norfolk and Suffolk, well, they're all set now to have their ability to express their democratic will neutered, kicked into the long grass, told to wait until 2028. Now the Labour government will offer a mealy-mouthed excuse that these councils need more time for reorganisation for the government's devolution plans to be realised. But Prime Minister Keir Starmer, the British people are not fools. The people want to cast judgment on this high tax, high welfare, mass immigration doom loop that you have consigned this country to. The Labour Party finds itself squeezed by both Reform and the Greens, and instead of facing the music, instead of facing the British people, they have ducked accountability in yet another unprecedented assault on our democracy. I've thought for a long time that this Labour government has struggled with a democratic deficit. Think of ending the inheritance tax exemption for farmers. An MP from a rural seat was suspended for voting against a policy that was never even in Labour's manifesto to begin with. Or think about some of the other things that we've witnessed under this government, like the giveaway of the Chagos Islands, or the decision to not raise taxes on working people in the budget, only to introduce £70 billion of tax raises since coming into power. These policies were omitted from the Labour manifesto. They weren't even put before the British people. And because of the hostility this Labour government has engendered across the country, people are making it clear that they wish to have their voices heard. But I think the Labour government, to be frank, is running scared. Consider this. This strikes at something more sinister in this country. When you observe that this government is taking back the rights to have trial by jury, this is a government that is perfectly willing to roll back an inalienable right dating back to Magna Carta. Think of the rollout of digital ID and the recent news that live facial recognition is about to come to every town centre. I think this is all evidence of a deeply authoritarian streak within this Labour government. By-elections and council elections are your ability, the people's ability, in part to either signal your approval of the government or vent your frustration at what is happening in Westminster. Well, Labour has decided that it couldn't really care less about your opinions. But Prime Minister Keir Starmer, you can only put off the judgment of the people for so long. I don't think it can be a coincidence that all 4 of these scrap mayoral contests have been forecast by independent pollsters to be won by Reform were those elections to be taken place. To compound this anti-democratic move, I also think it can't be a coincidence that by the time these delayed elections are staged, it could have another voting system in place. Out goes first past the post. In comes a supplementary vote system that is more supportive of left-wing parties. The Labour government might have contempt for the voters, but it is nothing compared to the contempt that many voters have for this Prime Minister. If Keir Starmer thinks that by running away from accountability, running away from the people, that they will simply forget the anger they have for this already tired government, then Labour is massively underestimating the British people. Their judgment is going to come, and I think the end of this government will also come in the not-too-distant future. As always, I'd like to hear your views. You can reach us at gbnews.com/your say. Of course, you can find us on X at GBNews. I'm going to get reaction now from my panel, political commentator Ellie Hodges and former Labour advisor Stella Santakiru. Stella, let me start with you. Labour, running scared of democracy?
Absolutely not. They are absolutely creating the devolution that they have always promised that they were going to do, which no other party wanted to do to begin with. If they were running scared for democracy, then tell me, why have they pledged to give hundreds of millions of pounds in unring-fenced funding to these local to these institutions before a single vote has been cast in any of them?
I don't think people want money. They want the opportunity to participate in democracy. Let me ask you a question. Do you think it's purely a coincidence that the elections have been cancelled in areas that, according to electoral calculus, an independent pollster, they say all of those mayoral elections would have likely been won by the Reform Party.
No, because the reason why the elections are postponed is because these institutions have not had enough time to be formed. So George Osborne and David Cameron, when they were in power, they also tried to devolve to to create some new mayoral authorities, and their plans completely fall through because they hadn't thought through how exactly the local government arrangements were going to work out. So it is exactly these mistakes that Labour is trying to prevent by giving them enough time. And it is actually a lot of these areas themselves ask the government to delay the elections so that both they can save money and so that they can have a better turnout, which if Reform is so confident that they're going to win them, then that should be good for them, and it is not going to change.
Ellie Hodges.
Just quickly on that point, if that is the reason why they have delayed them, why have they waited so long when millions of pounds have gone into campaigning, volunteers have gave up their time, knocking on doors, handing out leaflets? Surely they could let people know a bit sooner.
Well, the reason why they have delayed is because they have been told by the local governments there that there hasn't been enough time for their institutions to be probably
Curious timing. Let me just put this to you. What about this accusation, this charge from lots of people this week, that here we have something else, not in Labour's manifesto. We've had digital ID, we've had tax rises, we've had the Chagos deal, we've now had scrapping jury trials. None of this stuff was in the Labour manifesto, yet here it is being wheeled out by a government that we also discover this week is on 14% in the national polls. Where is democracy in all of this?
Are you suggesting that Margaret Thatcher should have just resigned during the poll tax when her popularity was down? Is this what you're suggesting?
What I'm saying is there is a steady stream of policies, tax rises, new legislation that is being imposed on the British people despite never having been in a manifesto. I'm not talking about past governments. I'm asking you as a Labour supporter, do you not see that there is something deeply sinister going on in this country?
Are you suggesting that the government cannot implement any policies which are not found in the manifesto?
Yeah, there is a long-held convention.
No, there is no
such
such
long-held
convention.
convention. The policies in the manifesto are brought before the people.
And that the House of Lords cannot... The Salisbury Convention says that any policy that is in the manifesto, the House of Lords should not vote against. That is what the convention says. It does not say that the government's hands are tied, no matter the circumstances, and that they cannot introduce new policies. This is absolute nonsense.
No, hang on a second. Ellie Hodges, Labour 14%. Do you actually see a future here for this government? How do you see things unravelling over the next little while? Because we've had the big budget, we had those big tax rises, we've had, since then, polling showing that Labour is down again. They were already on 16% before the budget. They're now down to 14%. The Greens have replaced Labour in the national polls. Not really happened before what we're seeing in the polling. I mean, how long do you think Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves and this Labour government actually have?
Well, I think Labour governments historically are known for clinging on to power for as long as possible. So I don't actually think that they will resign. But in this case, I think it's absolutely catastrophic that it's happened twice now. They've cancelled these elections twice. So I think the people that are living in these areas have every right to be furious about the fact that they will feel like the government can just, at a click of a fingers, take away their chance to vote.
And do you think...
They've never voted before on these new mayoral elections.
Well, I'm sure when they do get a chance, they're going to have their views
but
their views known. But
it's not like they had a mayor and then suddenly they don't have one. So,
but you know, still
they're still going to feel that they've had two chances to vote. That hasn't actually.
It's very interesting that you say that, Ellie. I wonder whether you are aware of Nigel Farage's views on devolution more generally and Reform's policies on devolution more generally, because I find it really very opportunistic and convenient, both on these and on jury trials and on a lot of other issues, which Reform has found the opportunity to jump into and pretend that they cared about them before. I really do not know whether having local mayors and devolution was very high on Nigel Farage's agenda before.
I think fundamentally what separates Reform from the established parties is the principle that power should lie with the people, not with international elites. Keir Starmer said it himself. He prefers Davos to Westminster.
Like
he
the
comes
crypto,
from
like the crypto international elites that are giving millions, that have pledged to give millions of pounds to Nigel Farage, like these ones.
Well, this party, every single political party has funders who give different donations of different sizes. Do you think ultimately, though, Reform is the party that is going to end up benefiting from this? You look across Europe, whenever we've had grand coalitions, whenever we've had attempts to shut out populist outsiders, it's always backfired. Those parties have only ever become stronger.
Labour is not trying to shut out anyone, and if anything, the fact that they are the government who created these majorities and who, as I said, have already committed hundreds of millions of unrestricted, not ring-fenced funds before they know who is going to be elected, just shows you that they trust the process and it's not about party politics.
Ellie, the real winner in all of this is going to be Nigel Farage, isn't it?
Absolutely. He will use this to his advantage again. And I think that the whole thing about convenience, I think it is quite convenient, the fact that Reform would be likely to have won every single one of those elections. So I think that it's very convenient. I understand what you're saying, but I think it's just too convenient.
We also have Reform this week on 32% in the national polls, number one. It seems as though Reform support has been stabilising after the budget, about 10 points clear of the Conservatives and Labour. Farage has been absolutely, shooting from, all guns blazing this week, taking on the BBC, talking about the migration issue. I mean, do you think essentially now Reform are where they need to be, or do you think they need to keep going further in the polls?
I think they still need to go further in the polls. They're at a very comfortable position now, but I don't think you should ever get too comfortable. That would be my response.
And Stella, what is the response from Labour to Reform?
In terms of what? I thought that the topic was about the elections being postponed.
But there's no serious response coming from the Labour government to the rise of Reform in the polling. We've had Morgan McSweeney this week, or we've had the Labour government issuing emails saying that we should be focusing on what happened or did not happen when Nigel Farage was at school. There doesn't seem to be a response to what Reform are saying in terms of the issues.
A response in terms of what that they're saying that has changed. They haven't made, when they make a serious statement, I'm sure there could be one, but I don't see why the government should be giving a running commentary on how well or badly Nigel Farage is doing on the polls.
Why is Keir Starmer mentioning Nigel Farage at every Prime Minister's questions?
Then there is a response.
But it's not a serious one. The argument seems to be that this is about Reforms associations or whatever with things that happened 10, 20 years ago. We saw last night a big national debate, we'll come on to it later in the show, about illegal migration, about mass migration, the number one issue in the country. Keir Starmer so far said nothing about that whatsoever, and the only option that people have here to express their views is being taken away from them.
I'm pretty sure that Keir Starmer has spoken plenty about immigration, and so has Sabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary. Look, Matt, if you want to ask me something about Labour's policy, I'm happy to respond to that. But I cannot really ameliorate any hurt feelings you might have about how high Nigel Farage is in terms of importance on the Prime Minister's agenda. I happen to not advise him.
But my point being, by managing the public, managing voters, shutting out their opportunity to participate in democracy, there is not a serious response from Labour to Reform. This is tinkering with democracy. It's not actually responding to the reasons why. Look, if Keir Starmer was serious about shutting down Reform, he would be having those elections and he would be taking the intellectual argument to Reform. He'd be saying, here's how I'm going to solve the border crisis. Here's how I'm going to lower migration. Here's how I'm going to end soft on crime policies. Here's how I'm going to reduce the tax burden. Here's how I'm going to reduce electricity prices. But he's not serious.
He has been doing all of that.
He's
literally slashed down electricity prices. He has literally made very stringent changes to the immigration system that the Conservative government never managed to do. Now, you said about these elections, why does he not give the public the option? Well, to begin with, as I said, there would be no such elections if it wasn't for the Labour Party. These are positions, these are local authorities created by the Labour Party, by the Labour government. They are not shutting out voters. The elections will take place alongside other elections to make sure that the turnout is higher and that we save money.
Just briefly, before we move on, Ellie, do you think Labour's response this week to Nigel Farage and Reform has been serious?
No, not at all. I still don't think they're taking them seriously at all. And they should be, because they're at the top of the polls and they're their main competition.
Yeah, exactly. Well, coming up, the BBC is under fire yet again because this time they find themselves facing down the allegation that small boat migrants were part of an audience for an immigration special on BBC Question Time. Unbelievable scenes last night. We'll be showing you some of them in 1 minute. Details are up after this break.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
There's a lot of tables out there that won't just have turkey on it. There'll be turkey and ham, and but I know some people that will cook 3 or 4 different meats. And obviously the joy of having turkey is that you can then make a turkey curry for Boxing Day and the subsequent days. So, you know, you should be having days of curry after your turkey lunch. I think for the masses, it's still hugely popular. You know, through the festive period at the Dog, we will have hundreds of people having Christmas parties, and most of them will order our turkey lunch or dinner. And then Christmas Day, we could sell it probably 3 or 4 times. The demand for people to go out for the traditional turkey roast is still massive. But hey, look, if you don't like a roast lunch, then why force yourself to have it on the, you know, probably one of the most important meals of the day in terms of bringing family together.
What about Sophie's point, Mark, about cost and spending £30, £40 on turkey? That is simply too expensive for lots of people.
Yeah, I'll never be able to defend or debate that. You know, I know more than anyone the challenges around food inflation, and a good turkey has become a huge cost. But I still think where people can afford the tradition, the joy of coming together, sharing a big turkey roast meal it's a brilliant Christmas tradition. But yeah, the food inflation, that's something we've talked about a number of times, isn't it? You know, it's crippling our business and it's crippling people at homes. I suppose the key thing to look at is if you know what you're doing with it, a good turkey will feed the family for many days. It's not just one meal.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back to Friday Night with Matt Goodwin on GB News, the People's Channel. Now, the BBC is under fire once again as a broadcaster invited multiple asylum seekers to sit in on BBC Question Time's immigration special last night. Here's what happened on last night's show.
So the man in the white shirt, now I know you came over on a small boat. Am I right about that?
Yeah.
What's your response to what you're hearing? Because obviously everyone is talking about people like you.
Leaving the convention doesn't just affect the migrants.
Okay.
In Northern Ireland and damage our security cooperation.
Let me ask you about your situation. I mean, since we were talking about immigration in this programme today, we thought, and we will be talking about people like you, we would see if there were, 2 or 3, 4 people who wanted to come along who are in that situation.
Well, speaking to GB News after the show, Head of Policy at Reform UK, Zia Yusuf, said he could not believe what he was witnessing from the panel.
2 illegal migrants who come originally by small boat. As you can see, the BBC were very open about that. How on earth it can be deemed appropriate that people who broke into this country illegally should have a seat at the table in a political discussion about immigration, about illegal immigration on a BBC immigration special is so bewildering.
Yet not once last night did we hear about any of the cases of innocent people like Rhiannon White, Thomas Roberts, Terence Carney. and many others who have been murdered, raped or assaulted by illegal migrants and asylum seekers. Well, to discuss last night's show on BBC Question Time and some of the issues that were raised, I'm joined now by Mohammed Asif, Director of Afghan Human Rights Foundation. Thank you for joining us tonight, Mohammed. Is there anything about the show last night that you found particularly concerning? Because many of the viewers watching, I think, would have been slightly confused as to why somebody who entered Britain illegally was even on BBC Question Time.
No, I doubted very much that these people were illegal. You know, I mean, I find it very difficult by you guys every time. You mix illegal migration with asylum seeker. These people were entitled legally in this country. They claim asylum, they were processed, and then they were allowed to stay in this country. And how on earth, you know, Zia Yusuf knows that these people are illegal, you know? How does he know? I doubt it. Well,
I assume if they arrived on a small boat, then they arrived illegally. The first act on entering the country would be an illegal one because they did not go through a safe and legal route.
I am very sure, and you know the Geneva legislation, that people are entitled to seek asylum. It does not say how you enter a particular country. When you enter a country, you apply for asylum. You are perfectly entitled to stay in this country.
That's actually not true, because if you arrive... Sorry, Mohammed, I don't mean to interrupt you, but just to be clear and factual on this show, if you arrive at an unauthorised port and if you destroy your documents on the way, that is indeed illegal. But just in terms of the points that were being made, that we should stay in the European Convention on Human Rights, do you think many people in this country will find it rather disturbing that they're being lectured to by somebody who entered the country through an illegal route as to why they should stay in a body like the ECHR, which now dominates over UK law?
As I say, and I repeat myself, the Geneva Convention is very clear, and you know that, and I know that, and all the legal expert knows that. Under the Geneva Convention, you have every right to enter any country as you wish. Maybe people don't like it, yeah, fair enough. But if once you enter, you apply for asylum, you are processed, and these people were perfectly right to be on the show.
Okay, well, we've covered that ground, and I think it's fair to say we disagree on that, so let's agree to disagree. What about this issue of the ECHR? Do you understand why many people watching this show will feel frustrated that somebody who has violated their law is seemingly lecturing them on why they should stay in the European Convention on Human Rights?
It's not about lecturing anyone. It's about the rule of law. The rule of law says that you're entitled to claim asylum, whether it's France or UK or Germany or Holland or any other country. The rules allow you. Whether you want to withdraw from the HCCR or whatever treaty you call it, that's entirely a different matter, and that's a matter for the government. But right now, for someone who is racist from top to bottom, like Zia Yusuf, lecturing every migrant that they are the problem here in this country,
Mohammed,
is just so unfair and unjust.
Can I just ask you? Can I ask you a brief question, please?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Presumably, you've met Zia Yusuf.
Yeah, I don't want to meet him.
Okay, you don't want to meet him. Can I just say, just for the record, that I actually have met Zia Yusuf, and I've known him for a while, and I would categorically reject the accusation that Zia is in any way racist. But what about this issue that was missing last night? Perhaps get your views as to... We heard a lot, and we're hearing a lot during this interview about the rights of people who enter the country illegally. Can I ask you, when do we hear about the rights of the British people? And when do we hear about the rights of British people who have been murdered, raped or sexually assaulted by illegal migrants and asylum seekers?
I find it very difficult. You know, every time you bring, you pick and choose. When it suits you, you pick and choose. You know, you pick one subject which it suits GBNews or yourself or Zia Yusuf or Reform.
No, I just care about the British people. That's why I'm asking the question.
I care about the British citizen as much as you care. I live in this country. This is my country. I make Scotland my home. I make the UK my home, and I contribute every single day to the life.
Did it worry you that we weren't talking about people like Rhiannon White? Did it worry you that we weren't talking about people like Thomas Roberts?
I mean, I worry about every citizen in this country, whether they're white, black, brown, yellow, whatever you call it. And the law should equally apply. You cannot just because one asylum seeker from Afghanistan or somewhere else commit a crime and suddenly you brush every single Afghan as terrorists, are murderers, are criminals. That's not really fair.
I don't think anybody's doing that. What I'm saying, to be clear, is if we have a national television show that is about immigration and small boats, why do we never discuss the people who have suffered the biggest costs of that illegal migration crisis? Why do we never hear about them?
But if you go back to Brexit, it is Nigel Farage who is responsible for the current crisis. When we have the Dublin Agreement, the Dublin Treaty.
No, I'm afraid that is also factually inaccurate.
Let me finish this one. Yeah, when we had a treaty that any asylum seekers come to the UK and they have applied for asylum in Europe, he or she was returned within a week. But when Nigel Farage was, saying that no, Britain will have perfect borders, we will have no immigration. So now this is the result of Brexit, and Nigel Farage should be held responsible.
Mohammed Asif, I'm just thanking you for your time, because I appreciate you coming on the show and the channel, and I've got to bring the panel in just to get their thoughts. So thank you for your time this evening. Let me bring in Ellie Hodges, political commentator and Labour advisor Stella Santakidou. Stella, was there anything about BBC Question Time for you that seemed a little odd? Can you understand why British people would have been watching that thinking, what on earth is going on here?
No, I think that Mohammed was exactly right. If someone is an asylum seeker and that asylum is granted and he has refugee status, then he's not an illegal migrant. Now, you may say the way that we assign... You may say the way that we assign someone refugee status is wrong. That's fine. But that does mean that until now, whoever has been granted asylum is a genuine refugee.
But about the show itself, Ellie, was there something that really struck you as rather odd about the show?
Yeah, I mean, I can completely understand how all the audience at home must be absolutely furious about the fact that someone who's entered this country illegally is getting airtime and is able to voice their concerns when they feel that every single day their opinion and their voice is being silenced. So I completely understand that. And one half of me says, actually, it's kind of good that he's there because you can have that debate and you can actually hear from them directly. So, for example, we found out that one of them had come through 6 safe countries before he got here, which is exactly what Nigel Farage and the Reform Party are saying. So that backed up their argument. But I also think Question Time, they were looking at it in more kind of emotional tone, and they were trying to make Zia Youssef look like he was a villain, basically, is what they were doing. And I think that they should kind of be looked at more statistically in the way that Zia Youssef was doing it, instead of trying to make it an emotional argument.
Well, of course, one of the arguments he made was that if you look at polling, for example, by JL Partners, among others, they show that 66% of all British people want to deport all illegal migrants in the country. So in other words, Zia Youssef, perhaps it's my view, but was made to appear as though he was representing a fringe minority, but in reality, he was speaking for the forgotten majority, many people would argue. The BBC have issued a right of reply to GB News. I'm just going to read it out. As immigration continues to be a primary concern for people in the UK, Question Time held a special episode in Dover with panellists from across the political spectrum and a local audience with a range of views and experiences. Over 20 audience members asked questions and contributed to the debate, including 2 people with direct experience of the asylum system in the UK who have been granted refugee status. A BBC spokesman also told GB News all the parties represented on the panel were told the day before the show that there would be people in the audience who had been through the asylum system. Well, of course, let me know your views on social media, and I will indeed read them all. Coming up after the break, has David Lammy let the cat out of the bag? Are Labour secretly planning to take us back into the clutches of the European Union? More information coming up after this short break in 1 minute. I'll see you then.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Further wet and windy weather likely in Greece and Turkey during the course of the weekend. Some heavy downpours, particularly across southern parts of Turkey, extending into Cyprus. Also, as I mentioned, gusty winds. The breeze coming down from the north, bringing a cool feel to Italy, but should see plenty of sunshine here. Same goes for Mallorca and much of the east coast of Spain. If you want temperatures over 20 degrees, you need to be heading further south. Some fine warm conditions in the Canaries. Those heavy showers only slowly easing this weekend in Greece.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. This weekend is looking unsettled with heavy downpours. The only good news is, though, it's staying relatively mild. That's because we've got southwesterly winds, but that is where the rain is coming from. So some very wet weather pushing into western areas through the rest of this evening, and that will move into the north and east overnight tonight, bringing some snow to the high ground of the Grampians. Elsewhere, though, a lot of rain. There will likely be quite a lot of water on the roads through your travel this evening and into tomorrow morning. Once the main rain band clears, that gives way to some heavy and blustery showers, and with strong winds overnight, temperatures will be holding up above freezing just about everywhere. But it does mean we are going to continue to see some further rainfall throughout Saturday. Some quite strong winds actually moving in across eastern areas of Scotland, and with the rain continuing to feed in, we could see some disruption here across eastern areas of Aberdeenshire. Further west, we've got some heavy showers across Northern England. Northern Ireland seeing a slightly drier day, but western areas of Wales, the south of Wales in particular, parts of Devon and Cornwall will see some quite gusty winds throughout Saturday. And these showers do bring a risk of hail and thunderstorms on Saturday. There will be some dry weather around, though, actually. Once the main rain clears actually in the north, much of Scotland will see relatively dry weather, and there will be some sunshine here and there across central areas. And as I said, it is on the milder side of things, 10 or 11 degrees. Some areas seeing 12 degrees actually through Saturday afternoon. So not too bad, but definitely a pretty unsettled weekend. A cold start, though, on Sunday morning, and then the next band of rain bringing another spell of heavy downpours throughout Sunday afternoon across the country, particularly actually this time across northern areas moves in. Now that will clear for some respite on Monday, but the next batch of wet and, for some of us, very windy weather arrives on Tuesday.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation.
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Friday Night with me, Matt Goodwin, on GB News. Now, Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy has suggested that it might be strategically beneficial for the UK to consider rejoining the European Union. That's right. Although Number 10 has firmly dismissed these claims, David Lammy has argued that leaving the European Union severely and unnecessarily damaged the UK economy, adding that re-entering the structured and collaborative EU customs union could significantly boost long-term growth. Well, to discuss this claim, I'm joined by Research Director at the Jobs Foundation, Nick Tyrone. Nick, what do you make of it?
So I think this needs to be seen as the sort of this... It's in the backdrop of what's happening generally. So you have Keir Starmer is the most unpopular prime minister probably we might have ever had since we've had polling. You have a government that has a minus 60 approval rating. So what's happening right now is everybody's positioning themselves for the inevitable Labour leadership contest that's going to happen sometime in this Parliament. And what's going to happen within that, I think, is whoever wins will probably be the one who has the strongest pro-rejoin argument, whatever that might be.
Right, so this is partly about positioning for what comes after Starmer, also maybe positioning in terms of trying to fend off the combination of the Greens, and you've got this Jeremy Corbyn party, if and when it ever evolves into something serious. But you've got these competing pressures, the Lib Dems, of course, as well, unavowedly about rejoining the European Union. But does it make sense? I mean, this is maybe my personal complaint about British politics. We've got lots of policies flying around that don't always make sense. I mean,
let's imagine, right? So let's imagine Ed Miliband wins this contest and he is the Prime Minister.
Do we have to?
I think we do, just as a thought process, as horrible as it may sound. And then you have Miliband, let's say, and he's going on this pro-rejoin, kind of idea, and he faces the general election, and it's him versus Nigel Farage.
Yeah.
Farage can just play all the old hits, can't he?
Yeah.
He can immediately go on freedom of movement, all these sorts of things, which
Control.
All that sort of stuff. And I think he just wins. Crushingly.
But what I mean is, if you look at, say, some of the analysis that's been done by serious economist Julian Jessup, for example, it shows that a lot of the claims being made about GDP declines after Brexit simply don't add up, that none of the numbers really make sense that are being pushed around by Remainers, but also this kind of total ignorance as to what's happening within the European Union itself. It's a declining bloc, it's a divided bloc. Most governments in Europe are moving sharply to the right. There's an ongoing corruption scandal within the European Union. There's no real resolution to the migration crisis, but yet we have politicians here who sort of instinctively jump at the phrase, let's get back into the European Union, without thinking, well, hang on a minute, does this make sense?
I think one of the problems with pro-Europeanism in Britain is that it's so dominated by the left, and that actually doesn't really make any sense at all, particularly when you look at, like, the far left, Jeremy Corbyn, Mick Lynch, all these kind of people sort of have traditionally been Brexiteers. And that actually kind of makes sense within their worldview. I think the only way that you could ever try and make a pro-European argument is within a centre-right kind of nexus. And there's literally no one that wants to do that, which is why I just think, for the time being, the only way we ever rejoin the European Union is if there is a genuine centre-right argument that would make sense to a wide variety of centre-right voters. And we're miles away from that.
Yeah, but fundamentally, I don't think it will ever happen, primarily because of the cultural identity arguments that still have not been resolved. The idea of saying to the British people, look, the answer is to open yourselves up to a continent that is still struggling with unprecedented migration, open borders. Look at Germany preparing for the Christmas markets this year. We're all reminded about the legacy of some of the decisions that have been taken there since 2015. It just doesn't seem to be an attractive, appealing prospect, unless, of course, Labour do it through the back door and they don't allow people to have any say on it at all.
Well, if they do that, they'll be crushed. That's just inevitable. They will be absolutely electorally destroyed.
Well, some people out there would say that is indeed the outcome they are hoping for. Well, to carry on the debate, up next in Mad in Conversation, we're going to be turning to something President Trump has just said about Europe, linked to that. He says that Europe is now facing what he calls civilizational erasure because of mass migration and because of forecasts that suggest the majorities in European nations are on course to become minorities. We're going to be debating that in 1 minute, coming up right here.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Friday Night with me, Matt Goodwin, on GB News, the People's Channel. Now it's time for Matt in Conversation, where I talk to somebody about something that I think is very interesting. And boy, has President Trump said something interesting. He recently shared a screenshot on his Truth Social account stating that the UK society has collapsed due to third world mass immigration. Both the UK and the US have been smashing records this year, but in entirely opposite directions. US national security strategy talks of an imminent greater struggle for Europe as a whole. In fact, the document suggests that whereas the continent's economic problems are pressing, its greatest concern is demographic. It says that Europe faces civilizational erasure over the next 20 years because majorities will become minorities. So whereas the UK and Europe are a cautionary tale for many over the Atlantic, can the US model be the blueprint for migration policy? Let's get the take of American lawyer Carol Kilgore. Carol Kilgore. Carol, welcome to the show.
Thanks,
what do you
Matt.
make of what President Trump has said? Europe facing civilizational erasure.
Well, that's Trump's way of making these sweeping, really dramatic statements, isn't it? But he's also got a good track record currently of lowering immigration to, I think it's 50% of what it's. No, he's lowered it significantly over the last. It's the lowest level that it's been in the U.S. since the last 50 years, because he's been policing the southern border. Obviously, I mean, my friends back in the U.S. say that they're scared to speak Spanish in public because they think they're going to get arrested by ICE officials. I mean, there's a lot of hysteria on both sides of the equation, isn't there?
Right.
But it's a bit rich for him to say that civilization is collapsing because. I mean, that is over the top, like he is prone to say these things. And to also say that civilization depends on a certain demographic of people, I mean, could potentially make him sound like a racist.
And do you think that's what's driving this, or do you think actually there are some nuanced concerns about migration? For example, we know that about 90% of countries around the world have a stable ethnic majority group. We know that about 70% have a majority of at least 40%. And what Trump's saying is there are lots of European nations over the next 30, 40 years where actually the majority is going to slide below that. And the only countries that have really seen that are countries like Sierra Leone, countries like Lebanon, countries that are really characterized by tribalism and a fractious politics. So isn't Trump just being responsible by saying, I think you guys need to get ahead of this?
Well, he's not known for kind of caveating and mincing his words, is he? So I mean, he's definitely grabbing the headlines. He's good at that. But I don't think that he's, I mean, on the one hand, you've got a point about saying, you know, the demographics. But the reality is that everyone wants to come here. Everyone.
To the UK?
Yes.
For the highest tax burden on record?
Well,
declining living standards?
Not the super, super wealthy, of course. They have better places to go. But certainly, I mean, certainly people that I know, not from, you know, war-torn countries, but just from middle-class backgrounds from America, they would love to come here.
Stella, What do you think about what President Trump has said?
I think the greatest threat to the Western civilization at the moment is Donald Trump, actually. So he should look at.
Sorry, why is he a threat? I don't. How is he a big threat to civilization? I mean, that is. Sorry, I really don't see that. I mean, because wears like makeup and says weird things and is prone to hyperbole. How is he a threat?
No, I wouldn't be so flippant as to refer to his appearance. The reason why he is a threat to Western civilization is because he has abandoned Europe and the UK.
How has he abandoned Europe?
He is not helping us with Russia. We have a major threat on our borders who is.
Sorry, where's the border with Russia and the UK? Is there a border between Russia and the UK?
Do you think there is a problem with countries being able to invade other countries in Europe and being able to gain territory through military force? Do you think...
That's a very generic question. I mean, obviously my answer would be no, because that's a very textbook question. But if Trump wants to focus on the US, that is his job as commander-in-chief, as president of the US, then he needs to focus on the US. He's not bothered about some war overseas.
He's not bothered about the Western civilization.
The people that elected him don't care about.
Okay, Carol, can I bring in Ellie Hodges? What do you make of this suggestion that actually this isn't about policy anymore, this is about civilization?
I can understand the argument, and I think he's right to say that there is a breakdown of civilization in this country due to mass immigration, absolutely. And I think it's actually concerning that our biggest ally thinks of us in this way. And I think that we should think about that, reflect on it, and think about the decisions we make in the future.
I think the problem is that our biggest ally is a clown. And it's not our biggest ally.
Biggest ally is a clown. Final word.
I will not debate that point with you. He looks like a clown. He kind of is clown-like in his demeanor. But I don't think that that's a huge problem of what he... I don't think he's abandoned us. I don't think he's our biggest problem. I think the UK's biggest problem are our leadership, our Labour leadership, who refuse to take the responsibility for the problems that we have.
Yeah. OK, well, coming up after the show, I'm sure to discuss what President Trump has said. Who knows? Maybe the immigration crisis, maybe question time. Who knows what Patrick Christis has got coming up tonight? He's going to have something interesting, that's for sure. Patrick, what's coming up?
Thank you very much, Matt. I am here with my wonderful live studio audience. Hello, everybody. Fantastic. Thank you very much, everybody. Oh, all right, they're up for it tonight. They're up for it tonight. Well, we've got loads of good stuff on the cards. So the BBC loves illegal immigrants so much they've started sticking them in the question time audience now. How long is it before they offer one of them an internship? You know, come in a specific programme just for the illegal migrants. So we're going to be talking about that. Also, I've got back from Wales, talk about whether Labour's lost the working class. Oh, and masks are back. Anyone going to wear a mask this flu season? No. No. OK, there you go. Stay tuned.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. This weekend is looking unsettled with heavy downpours. The only good news is, though, it's staying relatively mild. That's because we've got southwesterly winds, but that is where the rain is coming from. So some very wet weather pushing into western areas through the rest of this evening, and that will move into the north and east overnight tonight, bringing some snow to the high ground of the Grampians. Elsewhere, though, a lot of rain. There will likely be quite a lot of water on the roads through your travel this evening and into tomorrow morning. Once the main rain band clears, that gives way to some heavy and blustery showers. And with strong winds overnight, temperatures will be holding up above freezing just about everywhere. But it does mean we are going to continue to see some further rainfall throughout Saturday. Some quite strong winds actually moving in across eastern areas of Scotland, and with the rain continuing to feed in, we could see some disruption here across eastern areas of Aberdeenshire. Further west, we've got some heavy showers across northern England. Northern Ireland seeing a slightly drier day, but western areas of Wales, the south of Wales in particular, parts of Devon and Cornwall will see some quite gusty winds throughout Saturday. And these showers do bring a risk of hail and thunderstorms on Saturday. There will be some dry weather around though, actually. Once the main rain clears actually in the north, much of Scotland will see relatively dry weather, and there will be some sunshine here and there across central areas. And as I said, it is on the milder side of things, 10 or 11 degrees. Some areas seeing 12 degrees actually through Saturday afternoon. So not too bad, but definitely a pretty unsettled weekend. A cold start though on Sunday morning, and then the next band of rain bringing another spell of heavy downpours throughout Sunday afternoon across the country, particularly actually this time across northern areas moves in. Now that will clear for some respite on Monday, but the next batch of wet and for some of us very windy weather arrives on Tuesday.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the big one. Your chance to win a whopping £85,000 in tax-free cash. The largest cash prize we've given away to date. That's like over £7,000 a month extra in your bank account each month for 12 whole months. That's a year of yes. Yes to holidays, yes to treats, yes to shopping trips, yes to home improvements. For a chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every